Welcome to Simsbury Free Library. Today we have Ellison Watson-Maston here, our genealogist, and she's going to be sharing with us Irish genealogy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
Allison?
for having me. Hi, everybody. Okay, so when we're talking about Irish genealogy, it's not really terribly different than regular genealogy. You just have different sources. You start with what you know. You talk to your relatives, and you record any conversations or take good notes that you have with them. Make sure you note to whom you got the information and when, because you're going to want to mark that down at some point, because you're going to need to go back to them. Ask your relatives about any family Bibles, papers, letters, white boxes, or heirlooms that they might have. Between 1845 and 1952, Ireland suffered the Great Hunger. During that time, millions and millions of men, women, and children were starved to death. The worst year it was 1847, and that was known as Black 47. There was a potato blight, but that was not the primary cause of the starvation for so many people. The fault for that lies with the British government and the absentee landlords. This was also a time of massive immigration to the United States and Canada, and also Australia. Many immigrated through New York and Boston, but you should also be checking ships' records in Baltimore and Philadelphia. And many Irish went to Canada and then migrated south to the United States. Unfortunately, the Canadian border crossings did not start to be recorded until 1892. So you may be able to find a Canadian census for your relatives. We have plenty of Irish resources in the United States. There are sources that are generally available in libraries, online, or by subscription. Family Search is free. You should all have a Family Search account. It doesn't cost you anything, and it has a tremendous amount of genealogy information for both Ireland and all over the world. They, in the last couple of years, have introduced something called a full text search, and they recently put up all the Irish land records, wills, and conveyances. Well, not all of them, but a really good amount of Irish records. Ancestry.com is another excellent site, and most libraries have that site as a subscription, so you don't have to pay for it yourselves. American Ancestors is part of the New England Historical and Genealogical Society, and they have digitized all of the Roman Catholic records from the Archdiocese of Boston. There are thousands of records for immigrants for Irish and Italian families. Fold 3 contains military records. That is often part of, you can get that as part of.
Screen. Yeah, keep that.
Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Fold 3 is often part of, it's part of, you can get a subscription with Ancestry, but you can also get it for free if you have a state library card. You can access it from home with your state library card. Newspaperdist.com and Genealogy Bank are two subscription sites for newspapers.
Can I ask a question? How do you get a state library card?
You just have to go to the state library in Hartford, and they'll give you one if you're a resident. The newspapers.com and Genealogy Bank have millions and millions of newspapers digitized. Chronicling America is in the process, part of the National Archives, and is in the process of digitizing newspapers as well. There are free websites online for gravesite research. Find a Grave, Billion Graves, and Interment.net are all good sites. You don't believe everything you see on them, but they are places to go and research. And then also here is the National Archives, which has millions of records for different things like land, property, military records, citizenship papers, passenger lists, that kind of thing. You have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting, in the current administration, a lot of these places aren't being funded.
Yes.
Is that still accessible?
For now, it's still accessible, but they have closed several National Archives offices. They closed the one in New York City last year.
Mhm.
Those records went to Philadelphia or to Boston.
Okay.
But if you go to their site, it tells you where the records are.
Oh.
There is a real concern that the chief of the National Archives was fired.
Yes.
And, it's anybody's guess what's going to be available in the next few years.
Right.
Or what will be destroyed.
Right.
So here's some resources that we have at this library. We have Irish settlers in North America, passenger lists, and Irish immigrants. We are missing the famine immigrants. We're missing volume 1 of that. But I don't know if we ever had it. But we also have a subscription to Ancestry here. Immigrant Savings Bank was a very large bank in New York City. It still exists. That was founded in 1850 by the Irish Immigrant Society. It served thousands and thousands of Irish immigrants. The records are at the New York Public Library. You can find them on Ancestry, and you can find them in Family Search, but only in the library in Salt Lake City. They have index books, test books, transfer, signature, and test books, and deposit account ledgers. But these records contain a tremendous amount of information about the depositor. They contain often their name, where they were from in Ireland, their relatives, their signatures. Really, really cool stuff if you can find one. I never found one. That's not true. I found one for a client. I never found one for my own family. The New York City Police Census. There was a concern in New York City in 1890 that everyone was captured. So they sent the police department around Manhattan to gather another census for 1890, which is really pretty cool since the 1890 census overall was burned. There's only a few fragments left for certain states and nothing in the Northeast. But the 1890 census it doesn't tell you a ton of stuff, but it gives name, gender, age. It has their assembly district and election district so that you can see where they lived. And you can find the people all together by those things. You can identify whole families. I was heavily discouraged at the New York City Archives from looking at this census by the staff, and this was years ago, and there they all were, right there.
You found
I
what
found
you
them.
needed. So
Yeah.
don't listen to this.
Well,
Look
and
anyway.
it's harder to look at them online because they're not together online. In the city, they're together, but they have separate cards online. But it's really a good piece of information. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, I'm wondering, can you find
Hi.
non-Irish related people? It's not just Irish. This is for all of
This
New York
is
City, Manhattan
All of
specific.
Manhattan. I'll mention that.
Okay. Thank you. Continue.
Sorry.
Continue.
Okay, so yes, all of it's for all of the population of Manhattan. It's not just for the Irish, but the Irish, there was tons of immigrants, Irish, Italian, German. There's, but it's only for Manhattan.
Got it.
So, the Boston Pilot, you may or may not hear of that. There's the American Genealogical and Biographical Register has index links to articles that appeared in different papers, and it very frequently mentions the Boston Pilot. American Ancestors has those records online. They are also in books with this cover. There's a dozen books probably. But beginning in 1831 and over the course of the next 85 years, the nationally distributed Boston Pilot printed some 45,000 missing friends advertisements placed by friends and relatives in Ireland. These advertisements typically referred to the exact place of origin, the seeker, and who they are sought. Many of the ads also describe the process and route of immigration, and even the name of the passenger ship. it's really a great resource if you can find your relatives there. This
And I noticed you mentioned in your overhead that's a good place for women because women are very difficult to
yes,
track.
yes.
You know, interesting. That's great.
Cemetery records are always a good source of information. This happens to be from Mount St. Gilligan's, Mount St. Benedict's, right here in Bloomfield, and it's my husband's grandfather, and many Irish are buried at Mount St. Benedict's. There's also St. Patrick's, but it's in a bad section of Hartford. But don't rely on the headstone. The names on this headstone are Austin Gilligan, who is my husband's grandfather, Bridget McCormick, his wife, and their child, James Gilligan. Austin is buried here. The other two are not, and the cemetery does not have a record of their burial. But when I went to the cemetery office, I was given the following information of people who are buried there. This is a 10-person lot. He had 2 sons, 2 daughters, 2 sons-in-law, and his father-in-law and a great-granddaughter all buried there with him.
So they're not noted on the stone, but they're in the
Nope.
records.
The back of the stone is blank, and the other two people besides him that are on the stone are not there, and they both died in 1904, probably before this stone was erected. So, getting started with Irish, so those are all resources here. Getting started with Irish resources, there's a lot of Irish resources that are available. There are, and I'll go through all these. This is just a slide of explaining what's out there. I discussed British and Irish naming conventions, which are not by any stretch of the imagination etched in stone, but be careful when you look and you find so many people of the same name. The first son is generally named for the father's father. The second son is for the mother's father. The third son is for the father. The fourth for the father's oldest brother, and the fifth for the mother's oldest brothers, and so forth. Same with the daughters, except it's the opposite. The first daughter is named after the mother's mother, the second daughter for the father's mother, the third daughter for the mother, fourth for the mother's oldest sister, and the fifth for the father's oldest sister, and so on. This is not always held, but it is a pattern, and you will see that in Irish and British records. Also, everyone is named Mary, and everyone is named Joseph. So that's true in most Catholic countries.
Yeah.
My grandmother, my mother-in-law had, her grandmother had, there were 5 girls in the family, and they were all named Maria. And they went by their middle name. I put this bit about the Irish administrative divisions in the deck because it's important to know. I don't want to go too far into it because it's very confusing. But it's important to know the exact location of your ancestor in Ireland. And it's not always easy to find. So there's different provinces. There's 4 provinces, Connacht, Leinster, Munster, and Ulster. Then those are divided into counties. And the county is the local government authority. There are 36 counties, 30 are in the Republic, and 6 are in Northern Ireland. There are baronies, and they were ancient territorial divisions, the largest subdivision of the county. They no longer are in use, but it is. You'll see them on some records. So, the Poor Law Union, under the Irish Poor Law Act of 1838, the country was divided into 159 poor law unions, and each union was responsible for administrating relief to the poor and destitute with its boundaries. The unions were subdivided into electoral divisions, and each division had elected representatives to serve on the Board of Guardians, which they administer the poorhouses and the workhouses in the area. And then there's the district electoral divisions, and these are units made up of townlands which were introduced in the 19th century. You'll see the DEDs on the census records. So if they're in the same DED, their townlands are all close. Parishes, there's civil parishes and religious parishes. If it's a civil parish, it's for Protestant, and if it's for if it's a religious parish, it's for Catholicism. The established church has been used in most of the official surveys, so that's the Church of Ireland. The townland is the smallest territorial division, and that is, if you can get to that, that is gold, because it usually only consists of a couple of streets. The diocese is the church that people went to, and the parish is the smallest division of the Catholic Church.
And you're saying dating from medieval times?
Yes.
So that's the oldest record?
No, no, records in Ireland do not go back that far.
Okay.
And I can explain that. In 1922, the British government burned the forecourts in Dublin, and all of the records were burned.
In 1992?
1922.
Oh, that's pretty recent.
Well, the Troubles. Well, that was in the 70s, but the British, they were fighting the Republic. So you'll see in census records in the U.S., you'll see that people were from the Irish Free State, which was the Republic, or they were from Northern Ireland, which is part of Great Britain. I lost my train of thought.
You were on townland.
No, I know we were talking about something else, but it'll come back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the records are missing, because so the Irish government has made a huge effort to make these records available again, and they've had to reconstruct them. They've gone out to all of the parishes and towns and townlands in the country, and they're gathering what they can and putting them online, and they're doing it for free. So then, oops, I already did this. This is just a kind of a map of the divisions that I just talked about. I just want you to know what they are. It's not critical that you understand them.
Is there crossover?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. We're going from largest to smallest.
This is from Ireland, the province, the county, the barony, the parish. The poor law unions are kind of a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
The poor law unions are kind of a separate thing than the rest of it, which is why it's kind of over to the side. Okay, so historical denominations in Ireland, there were Roman Catholic, Anglican, which was the Church of Ireland, Protestant, Presbyterian, Lutheran, Quaker, and there are many, many more today. Roman Catholics are throughout Ireland, but most uniformly in the Republic, and the Protestants are mostly found in Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. Interestingly, which I didn't know until probably a year or so ago, if there was not a Roman Catholic Church, which there wasn't always because they were outlawed for a time, people would get married in the Anglican Church, which did both Protestant and Catholic ceremonies.
Oh, so your records might be in an Anglican church.
I have a record that is, and I thought to myself, oh, I've got the wrong record, and I don't. There's something that Ireland has something called the Irish Genealogy Toolkit, which is really a great source of information. It has instructions, how to do things, templates, forms, and news about record releases. It's really a great site to visit. There's a link there, and I'm going to pass this out. So, Ireland XO is Ireland Reaching Out, and it's a volunteer site it's probably 10 years old now. They have different newsletters, message boards. You can link your ancestors to other people that are on there, or you may be able to find other family names or parishes that your family belong to. It's free to join. They've gotten a lot more since they first started. There's a lot more stuff. They send out a lot of educational information, which is really very helpful. It's free. IrishGenealogy.ie has church records and civil records. This is the government site for all the records that the government has. They recently put up a new search page that will search both. You have to create an account. It's free, you used to have to search church records and then you had to search civil records. But this new thing allows you to search both. There's large amounts of 20th century information. They have transcripts of baptism and marriage records back to 1900. For Kerry, all the Roman Catholic baptism, for the marriage and burial registers for Dublin City only. Surviving Church of Ireland baptism records and marriages and burial registers for Dublin City. So the church records are not terribly helpful on this site because they're only for Dublin.
Okay.
Civil registration started in Ireland in 1864. It started in 1845 for Protestants. Marriage registers started in 1845 for Protestants. But throughout the country, marriage and deaths were recorded by 1864 were required. The civil records online for free are available till 1923 for births and 1948 for marriages, and from 1871 to 1973 for deaths. Birth records over 100 years old and marriage records over 75 years old and death records over 50 years old. That doesn't, yeah, okay, that's right. The records are updated every year to include the next year. They recently kind of completed this. They're kind of in a groove now of updating the records. It's incredible.
But this is separate from the 1922 rebuild, or is
This
this
is
incorporates
the
that?
1922, like the
Okay.
rebuild from when the records were.
So
they're-
this is where you would go to find the most
Yeah.
complete information.
The problem with Irish records is, I mean, they're great and they have them and they're wonderful. They're free. They don't always include the parents. Marriage records include the father only, and his occupation does not include the mother. Death records don't include either parent. So it's really, that piece is not really very helpful.
Do you go to a census record to find the mother then?
So the census, well, I'll go to the census records, I think. The census records, there's census in 1901 and 1911. There is one for 1921, but it's not, the Irish census is not out yet. I mean, it's available for a fee. There are fragments of 1841, 51, and 61, and 71. And I had very bad luck with those. I mean, there was really only fragments left. I did find something for a client once in the 1851 census, but it's very minimal information. Roots Ireland is another vital records site. This one is for subscription, and they don't have images. They might link to some of them will now link to the national site, but they do have different records for some reason. They're more, they've got more stuff. They started earlier, and it's all transcription. Dublin City and Cork City are not included in this data set. So the other one includes Dublin City. This one does not. Irish Ancestors is by John Grenham. He is the preeminent genealogist in Ireland. He does a lot of, he promotes Irish genealogy, he does a lot of place name things and where people lived. Like if you put in your ancestor's name, you'll find out where there's records for them. Like he'll put up a little blob of where there's records and he'll tell you where to go to get them. He does have, it is a subscription site, but he allows you 4 free searches a day. So, Find My Past started out quite a few years ago now, and it was primarily Irish and English records. It's extended to the United States and Canada. There's a lot of good records out there. They have birth and death records, census records, UK newspapers, Irish newspapers, and they have the 1921 UK census for a fee. The Irish National Archives has a lot of important records. They have diocesan and prerogative marriage license bundle bonds, Catholic qualification and convert rolls, the Tithe Allotment books, valuation office house records. anyway, they have will registers, calendars of will administration, and soldiers' wills. And there's two links here. One is for just the National Archives, so you can look and see what they have, but the other one is the link to the census. And that's what I was just describing. The National Library of Ireland is also free. Books, newspapers, photographs, manuscripts, and most importantly, Catholic parish records. And you will find tons of Catholic parish records in the National Library of Ireland. They are not fun to read. They are very old. They are discolored, and the only information on them for birth is the child, the parents, and the sponsors. The grandparents, no, nothing else. The date. And then for marriages, it's just the couple and their witnesses, no parents, and the date. They have the date. But they are quite
Black again.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Griffith's valuation. Sir Richard Griffith was tasked with the Irish government to provide a primary tax survey between 1847 and 1864. So this was during the famine. The survey was then used to determine the taxes that were needed to be paid to the landlords. Included names of the landlords, those renting the property, and the location of the property. You can search for a name and filter, use the filters of county, barony, union, parish, those divisions that I talked about before to try and find somebody. The site contains maps in their earliest form, which is, they're kind of like a orangey type of map, but what they have they have a bar that goes across, and it overlays a Google map. And if you go slowly enough, if you go straight over the Google map, you can see right there. But if you go slowly enough, you can see what the number is on the Griffith's valuation map and where it is on today's map. So sometimes when I did it for my ancestors, it was just a field. The road wasn't there anymore. But sometimes there's new roads, but you can go there. You can find your place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very cool. And that's on Ask About Ireland. The Public Record Office of Northern Ireland, also known as PRONI, has a large amount of digitized records. They have will calendars, maps, street divisions, evaluation revision books, and collections are available for research. I think I need to go through this again. I only went through it 15 times. So,
On site.
on site, thank you. So I have resource recommendations, which I brought books here if anybody wants to look at them. But there's Tracing Your Irish Ancestors, which is John Grenham's book, the new Genealogical Atlas of Ireland, Burns Dictionary and Local Irish History, Tracing Your Irish Ancestors, which is a book by Mary Daly from the American Ancestors in Boston. It's a much smaller book than John Grenham's. John Grenham's is very detailed and very down in the weeds. So when you're starting this, Tracing Your Irish Ancestors might be a better book. Legacy Family Tree Webinars is one of the best deals in town. For $50 a year, you can subscribe to them, and they have thousands and thousands of genealogical lectures. And then you can contact the County Heritage Center in the county that you're, for historic information. And I went to a talk the other day where the man mentioned a new gravesite website just in Ireland called Historic Graves. It's very new. There's not a lot of graves out there yet, but finding graves in Ireland is not easy. The way the graves are situated are not at all like they are here. You can't walk around the cemetery you can walk up graves, but they're butted together and they're just not always marked. But this is to map the ones that they have out there, and it's very new, and there's not a lot of stuff, but I did find something, so there is stuff. Just a reminder to review city directories, do fan club research, friends, associates, and neighbors. Often those people are close friends or relations. Sponsors for baptisms or attendance at your wedding are likely siblings or cousins, or at least close friends. Check the census records for immigration dates, the naturalization status, census records here in the US. And Family Search has a wiki page. You go down to search and then you go to wiki, the research wiki. You could just go to the Irish page, and then the Irish page has all different pages for counties. It tells you exactly what's available where, whether you have to go to a subscription site or whether they have it on their site. It's very helpful. Newspapers are a godsend. I found a whole huge scandal about my great-great-grandmother in the newspaper. Well, I should say the scandal was about my great-great-grandfather, not her, but the local, there's a local genealogy society in New England. It's called Tiara. It is a membership thing that you join once a year. I think it's $25. They have a monthly meeting in Boston somewhere. But they now do them remotely, so you can do them on Zoom, and they're a sponsor of the Celtic Connections Conference, which is coming up on April 5th. That is also remote. And they have 4 speakers speaking from Ireland on different things. And then I usually get questions about Irish citizenship. There are rules for Irish citizenship, obviously. If you were born in the country of Ireland, you are automatically a citizen. There is rules for citizenship by descent. If your parents were born in Ireland, then you are also already an Irish citizen. But if you're born outside of Ireland, and neither parent is an Irish citizen, but your grandparent's an Irish citizen, you can become a citizen, but the birth has to be registered with the foreign birth register. There's several other different ways you can do that, but it gets to be a little bit complicated, and once you get to the great-grandparents, like I am, you're out of luck. unless if my grandmother had registered my mother and she had registered me, then it would be different, but it didn't. Marriage, you can marry into to become an Irish citizen, or you can naturalize. DNA is not a path to Irish citizenship, and there is more information on this link. And then the rest of this is just websites. There's just websites, free websites for Irish research and subscription websites. And that's it.
That's fantastic. You mentioned those 2 resources, the Mary.
The Mary Daily. I have those in the car. I have those outside. I meant to bring them in.
Yeah. Is that where you would, if you're just starting out?
I would use Mary Daly's, the Tracing Your Irish Ancestors. I'll bring them in. You can look at them.
Okay.
And then decide what you want. But an atlas, the atlas is, they're very small. I mean, John Grennan's book is large and it's expensive, but the other ones are small and they're inexpensive and they're good to have if you're going to really do it. So
that's a good place to start, and then you gave us a deep dive into all the
resources, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
No problem.
It's amazing, the resources. It's just, and most of them are new, I suspect. Most of them.
They're relatively new. So Roots Ireland has been around for a while. That's the one that does the transcriptions. But the Irish, the one from the government is been around for about 5 years. I can't remember exactly when it started, but it's free, and the government is doing an amazing job. And really, it's an amazing thing.
Their policy consideration must be to encourage immigration to Ireland.
Yeah, but I'm still here.
For how long?
But yeah, the government has done a really great job. You had asked before about earlier records, because of those burned records. Then you're going back to paper, and unless the churches kept those records, there was no requirement for civil registration. Unless the churches kept those records, they don't exist. So if you could get back to the early 1800s with your family, you're doing something. There are some records that go back further, but not a lot. So,
is this treasure trove of resources typical of the European countries, or is it unique to Ireland?
I honestly I don't know. They have a lot of privacy rules in Europe. There was a couple here earlier today we're talking about all the privacy rules in Germany, and I know like you can't do DNA in France. So, they have very different privacy rules. The time frames for the records are more typical. 50 years for death, 75 years for marriages, and 100 years for births are more typical overall for genealogy.
And the universal Catholicism is probably going to help. Probably assists in.
It's very helpful because the National Library archived all those records. They're not indexed. You have to know where to look, and you have to know what place to look. But if you know what church they went to, or if you know they were from Galway, you've got probably 50 churches to look at. But you could find them if you know where to look. That's how I found my mother's parents.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions. And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government come together.